So we've got this question here, and what it says is that we've got two sides, 2 and 3, with the angle between them being 51 degrees. And it turns out the area, there's a formula for this. It's 1/2 times each of the two sides, A times B, times the sine of the angle between them. Now that happens to be 51 degrees, so we take a quick check here to see what the sine of that angle is. We do the arithmetic, and it turns out to be 2.4 miles squared. So remember, the area of a triangle is 1/2 the product of two sides and the sine of the angle between them. This next problem gives us an equilateral triangle with a side of 6. And that means that if we drop an altitude from the top here, it'll cut this into a special right triangle, 30, 60, 90, which means that the height has to be 3 square root of 3. Now we just do the arithmetic. We've got 1/2 times the base is 6, times the height, which is 2 square root of 3. Multiply that together, and you get 24 square root of 3 units squared. This next problem, you're given a 9-gon with a perimeter of 63. Since it's 9 sides and it's a regular polygon, it's got to be 63 divided by 9. That means each side is 7 centimeters long. So, okay, we've got side lengths of 7 centimeters. We know we have 9 sides, so if we're going to try and find the angle, the interior angle, it's going to be 9 minus 2 times 180 divided by 2n. Of course, that's 2 times 9, so it's 9 minus 2 times 180 over 18. And that means it's going to be 7 times 10, and that's 70. So now let's just draw this triangle. We're going to have an angle of 70 degrees here. We've got the height that we've got to find. We know that the side length is 7. So we're going to need to check the tangent of 70 degrees so that we can do opposite over adjacent. So it's going to be 2.7. And that means that the tangent of 70 degrees is equal to the height, which is this little part right here, and then divided by this part, which is 3.5. Now we've got ourselves an equation to solve. That's 2.7 is equal to the height divided by 3.5, and that's going to work itself out so that the height is equal to 9.45. Now, we already know that the base is 7, and we know that there are 9 sides. So it's going to be 9 times 1/2 times the base times the height. And when we do this arithmetic, we'll know the area of the entire polygon. And for this, we turn to a calculator, which tells us that the answer is 297.675 centimeters squared. Okay, the next problem is an equilateral triangle with an apothem of 2 square root of 3. The apothem is the part from the center straight down to the side of the triangle, so that's like the height. And this part here is a 30, 60, 90 triangle with the side being at the bottom being across from 60 degrees. So we've got to take 2 square root of 3 and multiply it by square root of 3. That gives us 6. So that's that part of the triangle, and that means that the sides are all 12, because that's just half a side. So let's do it here. The area is going to be 1/2 times the base, which is 12, times the height, which is 2 square root of 3. We're going to take that whole thing and multiply it by the 3 triangles that are there, and that's going to equal 36 square root of 3 units squared. Okay, so now the next one here, again, it's a triangle. This time they give us the radius, and they tell us it's 11 square root of 2. Now this, again, is a 30, 60, 90 triangle, only this time they're giving us the hypotenuse, 11 square root of 2. To get the side across from the 30-degree angle, we got to divide that in half. That's 5.5 square root of 2, and that's the height. The base here is going to be 5.5 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 3. So that's 5.5 square root of 6. And since each one of these sides is twice as big as that, that's 11 square root of 6. So that's the length of the side of the triangle we're dealing with. We've got 3 of these little ones in here. So we're going to multiply 3 of those times 1/2 times the base, which is 11 square root of 6, times the height, which is 5.5 square root of 2. And then an interesting thing happens here. The square root of 6 and the square root of 2, you multiply them together, you get square root of 12. And if you simplify that, square root of 12 is actually 2 square root of 3. So let's see what happens. 3 times 11 times 5.5 over 2. Those are the whole numbers there. And then we've got square root of 2 times square root of 6 is square root of 12. Okay, so we'll take care of these numbers here. It's going to be 3 times 11 times 5.5 over 2 times 2 square root of 3. And now you can see why I did it that way, so I can cancel out the 2's. Now I don't have to worry about being a fraction. I've got 3 times 11 times 5.5 times the square root of 3. And that's 181.5 times the square root of 3. So that's the answer to that one. Let's move on to the next. Okay, we've got an octagon with an apothem and a side. They've told us the length of the side, right? Here it's 10. They've told us the apothem, it's 12.1. That means we have absolutely everything we need. We have 8 triangles times 1/2 times the base times the height. As soon as we do this arithmetic, we're through. 484 units squared. That's the answer to that problem. No trigonometry required. This is a trapezoid, okay, and we have 2 triangles, okay. We've got a height of 7, okay. So the top triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height, and the bottom triangle is 1/2 times the base, the other base here is 7.9, times the height, and that's 7. And then the answer to this, when you do the multiplication and then the addition, is 39.2 feet squared. So that takes care of that one. This next one, I got to find the missing measurement, and that's up on top there. The height right here is 8. And so I'm going to break this into 2 triangles and make an equation out of it. And the fact that they give me the area here is what makes this possible to do. I have 1/2 times the height times the base plus 1/2 times that base, and I don't know what that is, so I'll put an X there, times the height, which is 8. Now I've just got an algebra problem because this has got to be equal to 42.4. So we have 1/2 times 8, that's 32. And we have 1/2 times x times 8, that's 4x, equals 42.4. I can subtract 32 from both sides. I get 4x is equal to 10.4, and then I can divide both sides by 4, and I get 2.6, and that's 2.6 yards. That's the length.